questions, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, approval of the minutes is complete. We're gonna move to public comment. Sally Vandermiller is my first. Sally, did you want to be somewhere else on the agenda?
Yeah, later on, public member,
Okay,
7.
okay, got it. Don't let me forget. Tim Barra.
728, please, or 782.
Okay, all right. And Marie?
is, 783.
You guys are gonna make this hard on me. So I'm just gonna, I will open it up and remind me, will you, as we get to those items. Okay, thank you. Resource revenue updates, analysis, attachment B, Michelle?
If you look at attachment B, we had, it's similar to the trends that we've been seeing. We had a small 2% decrease in in-district waste compared to 2021. And note, this is just through November. We don't have the December numbers on here yet. We had an increase in the out-of-district, trending about 6% increase in out-of-district, and an increase in out-of-state as well. It's about 10% compared to 2021.
Any questions? Okay. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the prosecutor's opinion. This is a holdover, I believe, from a previous agenda. Michelle, am I correct? So, the prosecutor's office comment to this?
Michelle sent out a memo from Andrea Newer. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got it,
I got it too.
yeah. So essentially, she isn't
If
gonna be
you have
here.
questions, just send
Yes.
them in writing to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item number 6?
No, I did have some questions, but I'll follow up later.
Okay, yeah, very good, thanks. Item 7, policy items for discussion. This is related to the Hamilton County Solid Waste Plan update. And so, Michelle, I'm gonna let you lead on this.
I'm going to give just a quick overview of the timeline, remind everybody where we're at, and then a few changes that we've been making so you can kind of get an idea. This slide you will have seen before. This is the timeline, the large timeline. So you'll see it starts May 2021 is when we started the process. We're about halfway there. At least in this timeline. So we've gotten the highway pay comments. I've integrated almost all but one that we have to talk about today. And then we have in the timeline to start ratification in March. That may happen in May. And then submit to Ohio EPA after the 90-day ratification period, and then approval from Ohio EPA, assuming, all of that goes positively. So that's where we're at. So we could start ratification in March or May. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So let's zoom in a little bit on kind of where we're at right now. So we're in January. If we want to go out for ratification at the March meeting, we would need to start this 30-day public comment period on the plan, which would start in late January. And then there is very prescribed when you have to have that public hearing in relation to that public comment period. I think it's, but anyway, we would have to have the public hearing in mid-February, depending on what day we start the public comment period. And then we would have a certain amount of time to change. So my recommendation would be, if we received a lot of public comment and the policy committee wanted more time to be able to think about those and decide, what changes would need to be made, then it would be best to push that off until May, push off the ratification. If there wasn't a lot of public comment, or it was, easily integrated public comments, and it didn't seem like the policy committee was happy with where the plan was, we could go out for ratification in March, which is what is indicated on our timeline. So that's just kind of an overview. Any questions about the timeline? That's the last slide I have on that. So right now we're at a stage where we've got the draft plan, we've got the Ohio EPA comments integrated into the draft plan. Bob and I met, to go over, some of the universal waste recycling and composting language and how to best integrate that. This is just an example of, some of the tweaks. The technical assistance was already in there, but making sure the word waste is in there, waste and recycling, that we went through those. And I will share that document that I shared with Bob, to just tweak that language and integrate that better in there. So that's one of the updates that we've made. The other update is with the public-private partnership. And this was something, so this highlighted language was added in order to really pull out that public-private partnership. And this is in Chapter 5, page 29. So Chapter 5, the chapters are kind of the public-facing part of the plan, if you will. That Ohio EPA doesn't expect the average citizen to read a 300-page document. So we have the chapters to make it easier. So this is, so the public-private partnership was more in the appendices. This is pulling it out into the chapters and really committing to that $150,000 study for a public-private partnership for an organic facility. These are just a couple of examples about, changes, adjustments to be made. The other thing that we need to think about with that public-private partnership is a siting strategy. So if there is a possibility that the county would own the land or own the facility, in that case, Ohio EPA says we have to have a siting strategy of how we go about that. Now, the good thing is we can put it in the plan that we are intend to, form a committee to come up with a siting strategy. All that doesn't have to happen before we put out the plan for ratification. But we do need in the plan that is the intention of the policy committee is to form a siting strategy. And I think that really requires a lot of public input, a lot of really good thought into where would you want to put, because most people don't want a solid waste facility in their backyard. So how can we be sensitive to that while still coming up with that need and make it, a regional effort too. So we partner with our regional solid waste district.
Michelle, are there dates on that, so you can randomly put them in, that we'll do this later, but what's the date?
Right, there isn't, we could put a date, but I was planning on keeping it, generic, but I'd be happy if you think that we need to say, we're gonna start the siting strategy in June, then, or whatever.
Or year one, or something like that.
Or no later than
Yeah.
I'm just one person, but I tend to like to have benchmarks so we know where we're at and where we're going, or something like that.
Okay.
And Michelle, the siting strategies are rather complex and contentious, and so you think that is some project's gonna take 6 months, 12 months?
That's a good question.
Not gonna be an easy one.
I highly recommend that we only have it for an organic facility, that we don't try to put a siting strategy for a landfill or anything like that. So that would be much different.
Yeah.
So, I would think that it would be similar in length to the rules development. I would recommend a little bit longer than the rules, but yeah, I think we gotta start early. 2 a year is reasonable, and I think it should be a subcommittee of the policy committee along with other entities that,
we need real estate agent, yeah.
But is it also true, though, that if we were not to have a publicly owned composting or organic facility, that this would not be necessary?
Right, this is, Ohio EPA is very specific, siting strategy is for a government-owned facility.
So I wonder, again, just from my knowledge of some of the conversations related to, we want to be more aggressive related to food waste and organics. Is it a public-private partnership? Is it the public doing it? Is it the city? Is it the county? I feel like those questions have been unanswered yet. So I wonder if language in the plan could contemplate all of the above, since we're really not sure where we're going to head on this. And I don't mind putting a time frame to it to kind of get it going, but I don't want to box us in so that where, we don't have an opportunity to say, well, the city's doing this, why don't we partner with the city and work with them, or the private sector for that matter. So I would want some flexible language in there.
Yeah, I like the idea that is there, it's kind of worst case scenario, although we've been trying to rely on the private sector to do this for 20 years, and it isn't happening, so my gut tells me it's gonna have to be us, but I hope I'm wrong.
Or the city.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on that, and for the timeline, I recommend, 2024, because that's the first year of this plan, this started off. But we had the Beyond 34, expert working group, from the Chamber of Commerce. And that group met for 2.5 years, and, it came to a conclusion. It was a organics working group. Michelle was on it, and Sue was on it, and many others were on it, and Mary was on it, and several others. And, from the discussions, there was quite a few composting experts, many, from the private sector, that basically said that there is interest in working in, food waste and yard waste from a private sector perspective, but they wouldn't, be able to buy land. They wouldn't be able to do the siting strategy without, a governmental entity actually buying the land. So a public-private partnership was the conclusion of that working group. The public part of it was not the construction or operation. That would be the private part. The public part was the actual siting and ownership of the site. And the private entities, whoever they may be, needed that support from the public. That's why it hasn't been constructed by the private sector to date. They need that support, because of prior failures, in the food waste and composting of the past. There is a past history that taints the future, and we discussed that. We discussed that in our working group, and the siting strategy is really, really important. There's an environmental justice issue that we discussed. The siting has to be discussed. Neighborhoods need to be involved if they're near neighborhoods. This is going to be a really difficult journey to site a food waste and yard waste facility. The group recommended regional, meaning multi-county, for economics purposes. And the city, as well as the city of Cincinnati, as well as the county, as well as multiple counties, to make it economically viable. And so the same partners, and I have the full list, people were in and out, but there's a full list of about 45 people, many of them experts in the field, and they could be brought into this. But I highly recommend about a year of a siting strategy.
I think it's at least a year.
A siting strategy,
Yeah.
a siting group. And I do believe that a financial investment is needed from the public sector for the site itself. I don't think the private sector is going to ante up on that. But the private sector is ready to invest operations all the way from the ground up, and that needs to be an RFP of some sort. They recommended a governmental RFP, whether it be from a county or a series of counties, an intergovernmental entity doing an RFP, because I think there's competition out there.
Bob, what about educational institutions?
It could be educational, they were not, oddly enough, we invited educational institutions, we invited the sustainability directors of the various universities, and they did not include themselves into this group. They should be included in.
I think that's the opportunity on this, is the private-public partnership educational institutions.
I love the idea. I love it. It could have been just the timing. We were in the middle of the pandemic when this group was meeting.
That's what that was.
And so it could have been the timing that they did not include themselves in. But I love what you're saying.
Departments weren't even working during COVID. Like,
Yeah.
they got rid of a lot of those departments.
Yeah, the schools were shutting down and doing all remote.
And they had other operation
Yeah.
issues, yeah.
Well, I think that's the added value of this, is adding educational, because, their research then can project out to future things, and, you know, they gain the credibility among the higher schools, the higher, higher institutions of higher knowledge and things like that. And I just think, from a researcher point of view, that would be something that they'd love to get their teeth into. And they have a whole new avenue of funding that's available to them as well.
Just for timing, the working group started in March, just a week before the pandemic started in March, and we all learned about masks and,
Yeah,
you know, everything kind of shut down, and so everything turned to Zoom. And we met, and I think the pandemic kind of shut down the working groups, and we kind of got worn out by the Zoom meetings. But we came to a conclusion that it really needed to be a public-private partnership.
I'd like to see this broadened out. We have public-private partnership. I'd like to see the ability to consider just a private only or public only. Sounds like we're getting a little bit ahead. It sounds like we're saying here are gonna be the conclusions of this $150,000 study. This, excluding some possibilities that they're going to a public facility or they're going to be a private facility. A lot has changed since that original group of chamber got together. Doesn't eliminate what's here, but it broadens it out. And in terms of the timeline, I think you need to leave the timeline open. We have really not had a chance to sit down and give this a lot of thought on it. And I think trying to put a timeline on it now may wind up hampering us in a way. I do like, Matt, what you were saying. It is nice to have that timeline there to kind of pull people down, but I leave that up to the policy committee. I'm sure that happens.
May I offer a suggestion? So the timeline, first of all, I agree with Bob that this could take a year. Everyone should be aware of the very first plan that Hamilton County developed it to have quite a comprehensive, robust siting strategy, which could be a starting point. It could save you a little bit of time instead of starting from scratch. And maybe the language is that you start the siting process in year one. Because I also agree with what Bob and Sue said, that until you find a site, and what Tony said, you do not know the structure of your public-private partnership, you don't know your capital costs, you don't know your O&M costs. So I do think probably you should try in year one, 2024, to get it going. But I did just want to make people aware of the very first plan. I don't know how many people helped put that siting strategy together, but it was quite a few. In fact, that's what I'm going through your paper boxes now. So just a suggestion, because you can't do anything until you get that site.
You're right, and then it's gonna be a long time after that.
Well, and so the idea is to give us a date to start, but not an end date, because we don't know how long it's going to take, and we honestly don't know what the options are.
Totally agree.
So I'm gonna try to, encapsulate what I just heard, which is, yes, siting strategy, leave it fairly open-ended, because we don't know what the nature of it will be, but put a committee together in year one of the plan, which is 2024, to start to look at the siting strategy and really the implementation of getting into the collection of organic. That's what we're after. Yeah. Is that okay?
Can I throw an addendum in there?
Sure.
So that siting strategy team could then, since it's not then part of a plan, the siting strategy can then come up with a working timeline.
I think we need to be fairly flexible.
Yeah, that's fine.
Knowing that we're getting something going here. Okay, all right.
That, I do not need a vote.
Okay, very good.
And my rest of my slides are later. I have some points about the aspirational goals to increase those and the health hazard products, but that's later on the agenda, so I can stop sharing and we can move on.
Michelle, could you flip back one slide?
You want to?
Kind of relate that to what's
I can send you all of the changes that Bob and I worked on. With that page. That's the whole thing.
and the other question I had is, Getting the following US EPA version hierarchy. I understand what that is, but I think I'm probably not familiar, a little concerned about.
Maybe the graphic that goes with it.
up? I can't hear.
I'm a little concerned about just adopting that people don't know exactly what it is.
Can include the graphic.
Okay.
I think the graphics answers Tony's issue because it's very self-explanatory.
Stop sharing and can you, all right, thank you. So now I'm looking at public comment. Are we there yet or no? That's where we are. We're at A2. Increasing out-of-district fee and solid waste plans. And we've got attachments C and D. Tim Mayer.
I understand that this district has as a goal to annually increase, or reduce rather, the volume of waste going to landfills by 1%. This is far too modest a goal. This county, like much of our country, is drowning in solid waste, which for Hamilton County includes not only the waste generated from within the county, but waste coming in from adjacent Ohio counties. In fact, out-of-county but in-state waste accounts for more than half of the total waste going to landfills located in Hamilton County. Landfills are have both environmental impacts and social impacts, and this county is shouldering those burdens for all of Southwest Ohio. The environmental impacts include both air and water pollution, but also the destruction of natural wildlife habitats that make way for ever-expanding landfills. This is particularly tragic when it occurs near the very special water resources of western Hamilton County. The social impacts include the threats posed to public health, for those who live or work around landfills, a decrease in land values, and nuisances, all of which are especially impactful on minority and low-income communities, which are more likely to find themselves living near to landfills. We need to dramatically step up our efforts to decrease the amount of waste going to landfills from wherever it originates. But in all fairness, there is no reason for Hamilton County to continue to alone shoulder the environmental and social impacts of the waste generated from outside the county. If the landfills located in Hamilton County were owned by this district, you could take direct action, as is done in Franklin County, to refuse to accept out-of-county waste, but you don't own the landfills. So the volume of waste going to landfills in Hamilton County continues to be twice what is generated within the county, thus perpetuating the environmental and social impacts on Hamilton County. This district needs to stop being the chump for all of Southwest Ohio, stop accepting the burdens created by the solid waste from outside Hamilton County. The adjacent counties owe Hamilton County big time, so I urge you to support Mr. Geddert's proposal to increase the Tier 2 fees incrementally to a total of $2 more. No one can predict with any degree of confidence that the fee increase will incentivize waste from other counties to be redirected elsewhere. But one thing I know for sure, if a fee increase is approved, the waste will either be redirected away from the county, or you will have a substantial increase in revenue which can be used for urgent needs, for example, buying a site for a compost facility, or funding other programs proposed in the draft plan, and perhaps including weekly updates of recyclables rather than just once every 2 weeks, thus advancing the timetable for waste diversion. No bad result could possibly come from increasing Tier 2 fees. Hamilton County wins either way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Marie, would you like to go now as well? Marie Kokoshi.
I have a little different take on things. I would like to reiterate something that's not in the plan, which is the universal trash collection, access to recycling collection, and organics collection. You've heard me talk about this maybe ad nauseum. These kind of programs are essential for our solid waste plan to attain adequate waste diversion in order to preserve landfill space for our Hamilton County residents. The aforementioned components are not included in the plan, the draft 5-year plan update. Instead, on page 5, we have aspirational diversion goals. and I quote, and this is from a draft that I received, from this office, from Michelle last week. Aspirational diversion goals. Although not required by the 2020 state plan, Hamilton County R3 Source would like to set an aspirational diversion rate goal to continue to challenge Hamilton County to be a leader in waste reduction in Ohio, increasing food rescue to feed hungry people, reducing unnecessary waste costs for businesses and residents, and recovering resources that become new products, fueling our Regional Economy Act as pivotal motivators for the work of Hamilton County Resource. I'm not even sure what that would entail, but in any event, I think that these goals are very far from the universal recycling and organic collection that we have been advocating for, and I do not believe that these goals, as stated in the draft plan for aspirational, will do anything to reduce our waste diversion. Aspirational goals in any plan should be clearly defined with numerical goals for each year of the plan and an action plan that will be used to promote goals to all the municipalities in Hamilton County. And I would like to refer again to I'll just take this out of context, which I don't know, it's my prerogative, but it says that they want to challenge these aspirational diversion goals, want to challenge Hamilton County to be a leader in waste reduction in Ohio. I think that's what we're all saying here at every meeting, is that we do want Hamilton County to be a leader, and I do not believe that the components of the plan will actually get us there. So, thank you for your time.
Sal again, Mark.
Hi, everyone. Sally Dan Miller from Sierra Club Miami Group. I'm here today speaking for the Miami Group. Our group has gotten involved with the solid waste issue and the work of the policy committee as we realize that waste diversion is an important avenue to protect the environment. And that's kind of what Sierra Club is all about. It's also focusing on utilizing resources wisely. So if you put the water bottles that people have in the dump rather than recycling them, we aren't using our resources wisely. Same with organic. If they are in a dump, they cannot be used for something else. They can't be sold, they can't be reused. So, and also making positive headway in fighting climate change. So those are the three things that Sierra Club is concerned with regard to solid waste. So we support the measures which increase our diversion rate, and we support a higher rate than an additional 1% per year. 1 is a lonely number, and it's a very small number, and we want it to be higher. In fulfilling the public member seat opening, which is what I'm here to talk about, we ask the voting members to support the candidate with the most knowledge, experience, and proven track record on a large scale in waste diversion. We ask that you cast your vote for someone genuinely concerned with protecting the environment through championing programs which will increase recycling and create programs for organic collection and composting. Those things need to happen. On a side note, I have a son in New York City. He said, "Mom, it's illegal to not recycle." I'm like, wow, that's great. I have a daughter in California. She said, "Mom, everyone composts. That's what we do." And they have bins. They have a third bin. So we support a candidate who would support funding for these types of programs. And we lastly support an accelerated timeline for creating and commencing these programs. We cannot wait till 2040 for these things to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the increasing out-of-state or out-of-district fee into the solid waste plan. So we've got two items related to this. In your packet, it's attachment C and attachment D. So Bob, do you want to go first, and then I will follow?
Yeah, I'd like to address attachment C, and I did promise the chair I will be brief. I did promise that. So I will not go page by page and line by line through my 8-page memo. I just will assume everybody read it. And I will make quick notes and then ask for a motion. The document that I'm referencing is the 8-page memo that is attached with, and it's attachment C, and it does explain what I am referencing towards the Tier 2 fee increase, the justification for it, and parts of the discussions that we have had at January, different stops along the way from January and through July, through September, and then November, and now here. We've had numerous different stopping points for this discussion, and most recently in November, it has evolved. The request has evolved. There was a request from one of our policy committee members of not having a rate shock. So this proposal is 50 cents per year for 4 years, a $2 increase from $2 to $4 for Tier 2. So to be clear, it is not a rate increase for our residents and our businesses within Hamilton County. That's Tier 1. This is Tier 2, out-of-district fees for those that are shipping waste within the state of Ohio and moving waste to Hamilton County. That's 54% of the waste that's coming into the county based on today's report. And not touching the fees for Tier 1 and not touching the fees for Tier 2. So the proposal is just increasing Tier 2 fees from $2 to $4 over a 4-year period. The two purposes, just quickly as a review. Purpose 1 is to not allow, but to try using market forces to prevent waste from coming into the county. Try to detour the waste so that it's not 54% of our waste flows going into Rumpke landfill. Will it work? Will it not work? That's hard to say. It's a market force. Some haulers may find it more economical to go to another landfill. Many haulers may not. Many haulers may just continue to haul to the Rumpke landfill. It's their choice. It's not a rule. It's not an ordinance. It's a pricing mechanism. So in that case, some of the haulers will continue to haul to the Rumpke landfill, despite my desire. So it will raise revenues for the district. So purpose number 2, it will raise revenues for the district, and it will raise it for particular purposes. What purposes would the district desire to use for this raised revenue? When we were working on the planned budget, there were certain items that were rejected in our budget because we didn't have funding for them. And I think we should review over those budgeted items, one of which was the expansion of HHW services. That was rejected because we didn't have planned dollars in the budget. That could be expanded with new revenues coming in for a Tier 2 revenue increase. Another item was the expansion of purchasing land if the siting committee recommends a purchase site for a private-public partnership. And that's what we just recently discussed. And that's an if that siting committee decides that it's in our best interest to purchase land. The Beyond 34 discussions had recommended 5 acres, and 5 acres is not cheap, wherever it may be. Another idea that has surfaced from discussions with the city of Cincinnati is supporting recycling programs around the county, through the townships and through the various municipalities, creating a program to economically support moving recycling programs from bi-weekly, every other week, to recycling programs that service the residents weekly. There is a national study that shows that recycling programs that move from every other week to weekly increases the recycling rate from anywhere from 8 to 12%. That increase is simply because residents are very, very confused when they have every other week service. They don't know what to do, and they get confused with the calendar. They sometimes put recyclables in the trash, and because their recycling bin's overflowing, or they simply don't
Get it on the right week.
they don't get it on the right week. They put it out and it's not picked up, and there is a lot of confusion on those communities. And Rumpke, our recycling hauler for most of those communities, can testify to that confusion. And I think it would support our recycling haulers in the community if we had some type of subsidy for the conversion from every other week to weekly. So that's a possible expenditure of the district. I think Matt might have some other suggestions, or any other policy committee member might have other suggestions. Dominic might have some other suggestions. Others, I would recommend that if this gets approved as a tier fee structure, that we dig in and create a very serious list of where these expenditures go and put it in the plan. And that could be a programmed discussion at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So I make the motion. I move that the Hamilton County Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee approve revisions to the Hamilton County Solid Waste Management District's update to the 2024-2038 plan for the purpose of increasing out-of-district disposal fees as follows. And it's 4 years. On January 1st, 2025, the out-of-district Tier 2 fee to be increased from $2 a ton to $2.50 a ton. On January 1st, 2026, the out-of-district Tier 2 fee be increased from $2.50 a ton to $3 a ton. On January 1st, 2027, the out-of-district Tier 2 fee be increased from $3 a ton to $3.50 a ton. On January 1st, 2028, the out-of-district Tier 2 fee be increased from $3.50 a ton to $4 a ton. And I seek a second for my motion.
I will second.
And I will pass this around to the policy committee.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is there conversation related to the motion?
Yeah, and I agree that, you know, it kind of gave me heartburn to have to cut, you know, the HHW program because we didn't have enough money. And the communities that, because of financial constraints, are only servicing every other week, and that does reduce people's participation. So if we could use some of this money to go to every week, it would reduce a lot of confusion and increase our tonnage by at least 12%. And then also then the third biggest barrier, you know, is acquiring the land for a compost facility. And any one of those could likely cost $500,000. So I guess I would, you know, if we want to put a number on it or limits where it could go, if that would get anyone, make them more comfortable with this, that I would like to bring to discussion.
I'm gonna weigh in real quick because I'm gonna pull attachment D into the conversation because it's related. So, attachment D, well, let me back up. So I think a lot of work has been done on this, and I think we all agree, at least from where I sit, that we are trying to divert trash from the landfill.
Yeah.
And we all agree that that should be one of the goals of the solid waste plan of this committee. This is what we're all about. And there are many strategies in the plan that already address that. And this is a subset of that because this is one of the strategies that has been put forward to increase diversion rates. I have heartburn with this because we heard from our consultant last time we met that an increase in out-of-district fee, where it's been studied, which I'll, say that the study group was only 2, because not many districts have done this, but in both cases, the trash volume went up, not down, with an increased fee. So I offer that by way of, some data that we have, but not a full data set that I would be much more comfortable with. And so the 2 things that I think are trying to be accomplished here, as has been stated by Bob, one is diversion, which I don't think, and we've all agreed that the study has been inconclusive. And so it's hard to say. You said in your remarks, you just don't know.
You just don't know.
You don't know. And I suspect if we asked Rumpke, if $2 eventually increase would make a difference, I suspect we'd hear no, it will not.
Yeah,
and
because,
so-
I did speak with Rumpke, and they said that really they have most of the customers in Butler County, and they don't think that it would change.
Right, so
they would still
so
continue.
we then can agree that we are not sure if this fee increase would divert trash.
Well,
So-
it would not, okay.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
So the other piece then was about generating money for projects that would be put forward by this committee, and the department. And so while, my perspective on that is, if we have projects such as an organics facility, that are going to come online, I think that is the appropriate time to talk about a fee increase, because we have a project that we are trying to fund, and we need the resources to do it. Let's not forget, we're sitting on a balance. It's not like we don't have resources. We do have resources. We've got a balance in the solid waste district. And so it's not, I am not opposed to raising the fee necessarily, but I will tell you from where I sit, generally don't want to raise the fee unless I know what I'm raising it for. That is just not where I live, and that's, I don't think that's responsive to the constituency that we serve. And I do have a certain hat that I wear, regarding these things. But I think, it's important to understand that there are some great things in this plan that can be fully funded, by the resources we have now. And if there are things in the future that we need to fund with a fee increase, then we contemplate that and take a look at that. And maybe it's not only out of district, maybe it's more than that, maybe it's nothing at all, I don't know. But I don't feel like I'm in a position to prejudge that right now. So with that context, I have been, I've reached out to the city, because they are players in all of this, especially on the organic side. And we've tried to come up with some language that talks about, a fee increase, but talks about it not in terms of doing it right now with this motion, but rather putting something in the plan that's fairly definitive, that talks about, contemplating, a study that's more comprehensive, so we actually know what we're talking about by way of diversion. And then also getting a better handle on what we would fund with an increased fee. And I think organics is kind of on the radar with everybody. Other things might be on that list as well. But I don't feel like, I feel like it's premature to raise fees right now. I'm just not comfortable with it. And so we've been trying to come up with some language. I've got a draft in attachment D, that talks through some of this, city, county. There was a more recent draft, I read it today.
I printed it off for everybody.
Today, so this is, ever evolving, but we are trying hard to work with the city to say, just that we all want to divert trash. Let's come up with strategies that do that, and when funding is needed, contemplate that, the fee increase at that time. So those are my comments related to this. And so I will entertain any other comments related to Bob, where Bob's motion is what's on the floor. Can we have everybody have a chance?
Yeah, let other, go ahead.
So I spent a fair amount of time on this, and I have a number of comments. I thank Bob for bringing this up so that, honestly, I took a second and a third and a fourth look at it. And, you know, I think that if I'm not mistaken, that Hamilton County is the only one that has this low fee. We're unmatched in the state of Ohio. And my job to represent the townships and to represent Colerain and my other capacity is that we need to slow this down. We need to increase the diversion rate, and Rumpke agrees. I mean, I think we all have shared interest here, and that's what's key. And I think that generally a rate increase is a good idea because it hasn't been done, and it's Hamilton County, and in particular Colerain is a source for 55% of the landfill is from other counties, and we're paying that cost, and they're, for, in essence, being free riders. And when Butler County comes here and says, please don't increase this, yeah, I get it, I agree if I was Butler County, don't increase the fee. And this is kind of the nature of what a federalist form of government has, is that, and I've made this argument in other venues when it comes to taxes with, people in other counties are free riders when it comes to the zoo, when it comes to the library and places like that. Hamilton County pays the freight on that. And I think it's important that when we have an opportunity, we take advantage of it. That said, there's a number of variables that we don't know. The idea of passing something and using that money for a list of projects, I want to know the specifics of the projects that are going to be done. And I feel that the townships need to chime in on that too, because they're a big part of this. And one of the things that in the back of my mind this whole time has been, I'd love to see how the voting goes, because we're proportional, right? So, what's Anderson worth, what's Colerain worth, what's Columbia worth, and, what's the city of Cincinnati worth? The other thing is we're talking about a significant amount of money. In leaving this on the table, I think it's important I think we have a moral responsibility to make sure that the people in the county, wherever they may live, are made whole, and this money is available. And I think that's important. And I don't know why there's a disconnect here, but, I think our report said that the landfill lifetime is 23 years. I've heard other numbers, like 35 years. I don't know which one's the case, but, we're talking anywhere between $50 and $70 million if over the lifespan of the remainder. And I think that this is something that needs to be done intentionally, with specifics on how we're going to fund that involves a lot of different stakeholders. Now, that said, the other part of this equation is, the data that we have is inconclusive. I've been around a lot of data, with 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and I think we're not going to get conclusive data on what this is going to do. I think we could do as many studies as we want. I think what we concentrate and focus on are areas where we can get conclusive data. And one of the things that was mentioned before was the moving of recycling from every other week to a weekly basis. We can get conclusive data on that. And whereas the fee structure may not change people's behaviors, certainly moving from every other week to each week could change behaviors just from habit. I mean, when you talked about people forget, my garbage gets picked up every week. Every Thursday morning at 5:45, I'm running out in the snow with flip-flops to put my can out there, and it's every week. I can't imagine if there was a bi-weekly thing with recycling. So for that reason, I do support the idea that we increase these fees. However, I want a pretty detailed roadmap if how we're going to do it to divert, to make the landfill last longer, and to make sure that we're doing it intentionally. I think that that's a requirement of us as we ask people to pay more. Say, look, this is why we're doing it, and these are the specifics. But again, when you talk at tonnage and you're like, we're going to increase it to $2, you think, well, how much is that really going to add up to? And then you pull out an envelope and do the back of the envelope math, and you're like, oh, $60, $70, $80 million. I think that we need to be very measured about that. And it's the first I've heard Commissioner Driehaus talk about some language in the plan that indicates that we are moving towards and pursuing this. We're sending a signal that the free ride is over, so to speak, and that we're going to investigate this. So I know that that's a lot of different working parts here, but I think that, again, I'm so thankful for Mr. Getter for bringing this up and pushing it. Pushing it to the point where it won't go away. And I think that now, I think our eyes are open to the responsibilities and potential of something like this. But I just feel that, I guess, I think Commissioner Driehaus said I'd like to see more specifics on how we're going to fund this out and where it's going to go. So with that, I'll conclude.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll keep this really short, but I did want to say that I have been thrown into this, and this is my 3rd meeting, and we've been talking about this vote. There was a lot to take in. The money side is what got me. And specifics on what the money's gonna be spent on, because I just heard somebody say that the increase made the waste go up. Well, there's still money coming in. So if we're talking about a place to get for organics, like, it seems like we're throwing a bunch of stuff up there to say, let's have a list of things. For the last couple of meetings, we've been talking about the site for organics. So, like, it just kind of seems like we keep pushing this increase off, but it seems also like more and more people are starting to understand the value in it. So, again, if somebody can explain to me and pretend like I don't know anything we're talking about, is what is the downside if it's either gonna decrease or it's gonna increase revenue? So, I don't know. And then if it's out of county, then why are we worried about it?
I mean, for response,
Yeah.
so I believe, since this is statutory, this rate, I believe that once you fire that bullet, it's fired. You can't put it back. And to do so, I want to make sure that it's directed at a lot of specifics. So in other words, we increase this, and later on, 5 years from now, we find out that we were a little misguided in what we wanted to do with that. This is a tricky thing because we're a policy committee, and I have the belief that policy doesn't get directed down. It's the grassroots that send it up. And whereas we might be talking about things, maybe your average Hamilton County resident is like, no, I just want them to come every week, or something like that. I mean, and that's the downside of firing that, in my mind, firing that shell now, is that once we hit that statutory maximum, we've done it. There's no more places to go. Yeah.
Well, and I think the process is part of the conversation here too, where we had a process where this fee increase was not included as part of the plan. And so I think some of the challenge with timing is that we have not done that robust conversation with the communities, because we were out in the communities and this wasn't part of the conversation. Nobody brought it up. And so I think, I'm gonna read part of the language that has been kicked back and forth to the city, just so there's a better understanding of it. Resource will begin to work for the next solid waste plan update in '26, and will include a full study of the impact and benefits of increasing fees. This study will include a detailed analysis of what new or expanded solid waste programs could result in the most increase in waste diversion with the added revenue. And so it does get to this idea that, and I would be open to a suggestion that we bump that date up a little bit, to make it sooner than later. But there is some work that would have to be done to organize all of this. And so I'm trying to be, generous in that way to staff, to say, I know there's a lot of work that goes into this, and the consultants. So anyway, I just wanted to provide that to you.
Thank you.
So the two members that haven't had any, do you have any input?
Currently, Craig, no. Actually do not, but thank you for
All
all
right.
the comments. They've all been very helpful. I mean, I did do some homework ahead of time, but I appreciate everybody's perspective.
I think the first comment I have is a vote against this increase at this time should not be seen as a vote against those type of programs that have been discussed, but in very general terms. And my line of thought goes along with your thoughts, Commissioner, and with Matt's thoughts, that take back, let's get our details in place on this. And there's been too many programs, not necessarily here, but somewhat here, that have been started, and they've been failures because there was that lack of initial investigation, planning, and thinking it through on it. And as Matt said, there's many variables out there, and so trying to pull all those in it's difficult, and it takes time. Preserving landfill space is a difficult issue for Hamilton County. You talked about Franklin County. Franklin County is an entirely different situation. They have had their own landfill. They own their own landfill. It's a solid waste authority, which gives them different powers than the solid waste district. So I can't go by what they're doing. They have some great programs, interesting programs, but they're not the same as we are. But the other thing I think has been really lacking is a more regional approach. When House Bill 592 was originally being considered by the state legislature, the idea behind that was to have regional solid waste districts, not single county districts. As legislative negotiation goes, that didn't, they left it up to the individual counties to kind of make that decision. And I think we are missing an opportunity here, and I'll use Butler County as an example where, why don't we pull them into this discussion? Why don't we have them participate, probably Butler, and Brown, and any other surrounding counties that would have, pull them in, rather than let's butt heads with them on these things. Butler County, we could go in, and I'm using Knowingly as an example, and talk to them, maybe they can raise their generator fees. That would go towards raising the cost of sending it to a landfill, which you think might result in additional waste being diverted from landfills. I don't think it will. And that might allow them to do some funding of some additional programs that has an impact on increasing organics, recycling, increasing waste reduction, increasing recycling overall. The other thing we could work on is actually sharing some of our revenues with surrounding counties. Oh my God, is that possible to do? I think it is possible to do if we start looking at things on a more regional basis. We've talked about that some type of an organics facility. I'm not sure what that is. Whether that's composting, whether it's anaerobic digestion, whether it's some combination of those items. That's why I prefer to keep things open, particularly in terms of these public-private partnerships. It could be private, it could be public, or it could be a partnership on it. Who knows? We may need to go back to Butler County if we move down this far enough to say, we are going to have a difficult time, maybe an impossible time, citing some type of organics facility in Hamilton County, or we need to have more than one facility, and we think it would be wise to cite a second facility in Butler County. When you start moving around or trying to remove how waste moves around a region, you don't know what's going to happen. And I'll throw out an option of if we want to preserve landfill space, if the city of Cincinnati feels that's a real need, sign a long-term contract with Rumpke, sign a long-term contract with another landfill, haul your waste up to Indianapolis where it goes to a waste energy facility. There's a lot of other options there on it, but negotiate a contract with them for landfill space. That's not unheard of. It's done in many, many places, and done in the long term. My point about bringing that up is I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to be done on this, and a lot of other options that haven't been brought to the table in terms of looking at how do we go to our basic mission of diverting waste from landfill. Our mission is not to preserve landfill space. It's diverting waste from landfill, whether it's through a direct diversion or whether it's through recycling on it. So those are kind of my thoughts.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think we've done the round robin, but I want to make some final comments there. One is that we do have some excess funds in our current account. If we spend those, that's a one-time fund. That's a one-time expenditure, doesn't get self-funded. The Tier 2 fees are self-funded. They will be ongoing. It's an ongoing new fee, new funding. With this step-up fund, it's approximately $500,000 new income per year, depending on how much waste is diverted and how much does come in. It's approximately a $500,000 new revenue for the first year, and then stepping up from there. But it's newfound revenue, and it's self-funding each year, ongoing. It's not lost revenue. It's not just a one-time fund. Secondly, if we go with the second proposal, if you have a study and you find that you do need a Tier 2 fee increase, it's a ratification process to do a Tier 2 fee increase at a later date. separate ratification process outside plan approval. If you do a tier 2 fee increase right now, it's within the plan approval ratification process. So you go through the plan approval process, you have a tier 2 fee increase. Within the plan, you go through the ratification process right as planned right now. But if you do a tier 2 fee increase 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you have to go through a separate ratification process. With a single item, just a single item, a rate increase, that is likely to fail. Townships see a rate increase, whether it's on themselves or on adjoining counties, it's likely to just fail. It's a single item. But if it's part of the plan, and here's what the plan plans to use the funds for, and it's a 300-page plan, and this is what we plan on doing, it probably pass. It's not endangering the plan. So I think doing tier 2 fee increase right now and not 2 years from now makes more sense. The one issue we've discussed that I do think needs to be nailed down is what the expenditures are for. It doesn't make sense to do a rate increase and not have it nailed down on the expenditures. They go hand in hand. And I do think we need to nail down what the expenditures are tied to with this rate increase. I don't think we have time in today's meeting to nail that down, but I do think we can nail that down in next week's meeting. And we do need to kind of make some recommendations in the plan as it goes for ratification process. We need to tell the townships and the communities that are going through the ratification plan, this is our game plan for this rate increase. This rate increase doesn't affect anybody in this county, but it does affect the communities outside this community, for those moving the waste into the county. And I think it does need justification for where we're going to plan the expenditures and how it helps this county. I do recommend that some of those expenditures try to assist in moving some of the material into a further recycling format or waste reduction format. There are some good ideas on the table. I think we should have a good game plan to discuss next month or next meeting. So if there isn't any further comments, and
I have a further comment. What you just said, I couldn't wrap my head around that. If we come back later on and say we want to increase out-of-district fees only, that's going to be a difficult sell to people within Hamilton County.
But it's my opinion, my opinion.
And if that's the case, why wouldn't it be a hard sell now?
Because it's part of a 300-page plan that has the concepts behind it.
Well, when we come back with answer a rate increase, we would be saying, here's why we've done this additional work, here's why we think it's a good, here's the justification actually for that increase, much more so than what we're proposing.
I completely agree, but I was gonna comment similarly, no offense, Bob, but when you made that comment about it, it's kind of doomed to fail, I don't agree with that at all. I think if you come with a plan and show your plan of how you're gonna spend things, much greater chance.
I respect everybody's opinion. I just am on a different plane of thought there.
Well, and I think, we're talking about timing here. In the end, I think, there's common agreement that we should look at a fee increase. Look at whether it diverts trash, and we should also look at what we would do with the money if we had a fee increase and justify it. And I don't think we're quite there, and I think that's what you're hearing, some of the angst, and you kind of nailed it. We have not had this conversation with the outlying communities, and I am not comfortable with slipping in a fee increase, whether it's on them or not, and not having a robust conversation with all the 49 jurisdictions, 48 jurisdictions, that we interface with. And because it really wasn't discussed as part of this process. So, that's my anxiety about it. What I will say is, not relative to your motion, but relative to, let's vote on the motion, and then I will speak to the next attachment. So if there's no further discussion.
Is it possible to have a competing motion to table this? How is that strategically done?
Speak your mind on that.
Well, because I think that, we want to talk some more. I don't want to vote no.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to discuss the motion to table?
But I think in this instance, it's better to just vote on the up or down, because it could
always be brought back later, rather than having a competing, but go ahead.
Okay, so-
I thought we weren't allowed to debate the motion to table. Am I incorrect on that?
No, I'm
Okay.
saying to bring it up. I'm saying we should just vote up or down, rather than to have a competing motion.
So I have a further question, parliamentary question about that, then. If the vote is defeated, then it can be brought back up next week or next meeting by somebody that voted in the affirmative or in the negative? That voted on the losing side or winning side? How is that not? I think it's a losing side, right? Okay.
Well, I thought with Robert's Rules of Order that you couldn't bring it back up.
If you vote on the losing side, I think you can bring it back up.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we voting on the motion?
Okay, then I'll.
There's a motion to table precedes this motion, so we're not doing that right now, right?
Right. I just didn't want to kill it for good.
All right.
Right.
Well, and I will, speak to that after the vote.
Okay.
So, all right, so let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion that Bob has put forward, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up. So let me just then briefly, talk about attachment D. So attachment D is a back and forth again with the city. So my expectation is that there will be language, that we can all agree to, and this group will have to agree to it, obviously, related to this. But the idea is to have this conversation, to have it broadly throughout the community, to let people have some input about not only the fee increase itself, but also what the money would be used for. So we've got a broader, instead of just us, talking about this, because I think there are probably many, many ideas about how to use, any kind of revenue increase. But I think we do need to have that conversation with the broader community. So, I will continue to work on this and, push it out to the members of the policy committee, so we're all up to date.
So, Mr. Commissioner, just so that I'm clear then, in the minutes will reflect who the yes votes are, which were the losing side, then they could actually bring it back up again next week, next meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that's.
And you are willing to talk about that, not waiting till 2026, but talk about how we might spend money if we had it in 2023 and 2024, and then possibly bringing it to ratification, bringing it to the communities in a couple years? Or are you saying you just want to bag this for 3 years with this?
What I'm saying is that I think we need more information, both on what is the impact of a revenue increase related to diversion,
Yeah.
and the other piece is, what, if we had a fee increase, what would be the intent for the fee increase, and what would we use dollars for? Those are the two things that would be studied.
Okay, but in 2023?
That is, well, there's timing associated with this, but we can discuss the timing of it.
Okay.
I mean, the plan doesn't go into effect until 2023.
Or 2024, actually. Right. So yeah,
We would have to pull around
okay.
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
And my thought is, as the plan goes through, plan ratification, we could be inventorying the townships on their thoughts for the revenue.
Yeah.
And the communities.
I think I agree with you, Commissioner. It's timing, and it's having a good case to put forth for an increase. Second of all, I want to reemphasize, I think, the need to try to make this as much as a regional effort as possible.
Thank you. All right, well, let's move on to 7A3, aspirational conversion goals.
I just have one slide for this, so. So currently, solid waste, let me apologize. So I really pushed putting the aspirational goal in there. This is not something that's required by Ohio EPA, but we've exceeded the state mandated goals for quite a while now. And so I really felt like it was important that we have a goal that we're working towards in this plan. That was my intention. And I don't think I worded it very well, because it really is, it's a 30% increase in diversion. the 1% per year. So I think the 1% per year is what people are getting hung up on. They don't like that wording. So I'm gonna change that wording. But, beyond that, I think that we have some areas that we can stretch and, increase the diversion rate. And so, on the advice of Bob, I broke out the diversion rate into residential, commercial, and industrial. So this first column here is where we were at in 2020, because that's our baseline year for the plan. And so you can see we're at an 18% diversion rate residentially, commercially at 43%, and the 68% is actually without the flue gas sulfurization.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so it's actually higher than that, but I'm just trying to get myself used to not having that in there so we don't get confused. So that's why I took it out. It's actually higher than that. It's actually 86%, I think, in reality.
Yeah.
So what I'm working on and is stretching those goals. And I apologize, I'm still working on the numbers. This is where I'm at right now. I think that the commercial actually has, and it definitely has the most potential for increase. There's the most waste there. 86% of the waste generated in Hamilton County. So the commercial sector is where we have the most potential for growth. The residential sector would be the next on that list, and much of this growth is based on communities that currently do not have recycling increasing their access. There's some other smaller things in there, but that's the largest number. Industrial, to be honest, is going to be a tough nut to crack, and we definitely have industrial programs, we offer that to them, but in reality, I don't think it is a sector that we're going to see a whole lot of increased diversion. The thing that wouldn't change that is anaerobic digestion. We may see a huge spring up in that. But if we're setting goals on district programs and how they can impact, I think that that's our least beneficial sector to dump resources in. So I'm not asking for a vote on this. I'm still tweaking the numbers. They may shake out a little differently than that, but I just wanted to let you know that I am working on that. I'd like to have it in the new updated plan when it goes out for public comment. But I hear all of the comments on the 1% and it's giving everybody heartburn, and I just want to let you know I'm going to change. So any questions on that before I move on to health and hazardous products?
How do you define commercial? What generators are?
So, yeah, it's very, and that is something that we've noticed, is that the commercial sector actually doesn't define themselves as that. Commercial and industrial kind of bleed together, but industrial would be where they're actually manufacturing products. And then commercial would be your restaurants, your retail, your, offices, all of that would be considered commercial.
So industrial is basically, Tony, SIC codes 20 through 39.
So what about multifamilies? Because city classifies those as a commercial.
That's right. So in this number, multifamilies are considered commercial if it's above 4 units. So in our numbers, if we do assistance for multifamily, that's actually benefiting the commercial sector.
Okay.
Any other conversation?
Yeah, have you heard anything on the anaerobic digester project that's?
They're working on getting permits.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I was wondering, okay. That would really help on the industrial.
So I actually did speak with them after we did the audit at the hospital, because Mercy wants to get a pre-digester so they can take their food and pre-digest it and take it to the AD digester. And they were moving along quite well, but then because of everything with COVID and supply chain issues, they weren't able to begin construction, which has made that their permit to construct or permit to install basically expired. So now they have to go back to the state, restart that process. They are still hoping to break ground late 2023, early 24, but again, for an anaerobic digester, a lot of the equipment has to come from Europe. It's not like you go to Walmart and pick up. So they're having a bit of that problem, but they still are highly, highly committed to doing it, and Hamilton County Resource is working with large industrial generators to offer their free audits so we can see how much food they have, and then what are the economic barriers of them having separate collection to the new facility for processing. Everyone is committed, but it's like everything else, pandemic kind of created havoc.
Just one comment. I know there are interests from other companies coming into this region of anaerobic digestion as well. Competition in that regard.
Good to hear.
And the one thing we need to be careful about with anaerobic digestion is that most of the operators are very specific about the quality of their stream. So they're very interested in manufacturing waste, or like in the hospital, if we can keep the food processing waste, not what the people have been served, separate, that's their ideal waste stream. Because when they start getting contamination, their ability to produce a marketable product is eliminated, and now you're just taking food, making sludge, and putting the sludge in the landfill, which is no one's objective.
So we have three big items after this, so I'm gonna try to the household hazardous product. Okay. So, I just wanted to make you aware that this is another change that I'm hoping to, add to the, this is the one I mentioned that, Ohio EPA tagged. And so, there's a few things happening here. One, our 2023, so just in our current plan, we are doing the regular, household hazardous products drop-off, but we've added a pilot community component. So we are gonna partner with 5 communities to have smaller, more accessible drop-offs in their, communities. So that has the potential of growing, and we actually have that in the contract that we can grow that if it works. So it's a pilot, so we don't know what the participation will be, what the cost will be, so those will be things we are evaluating. The other thing that we've been working on, we've been working with, Rocky and, the hub, talking about a lithium-ion battery drop-off. So this would be targeting materials specifically, and specifically materials that we know have, like lithium ions are very dangerous. They cause a lot of fires. So, I'm gonna give all credit to the hub that has been working, really doing all of the work on this, but, you know, we could be a potential partner in helping to fund this once, it gets off the ground. And I talked to Colleen earlier today, and it looks like, she's gonna be able to get it off the ground probably in February. So, that's exciting stuff. So the language that I want to add is really about, trying to focus on those materials to make this more effective, because we know that our current model isn't effective. So how can we be creative in making it more effective? So I'm gonna add that. I also really want to, we have a really successful online search. We had, I think, 48,000 searches on it in the last year on household hazardous products. So we get way more hits to that website than we do, you know, our actual drop-off. So I want to, we only pay $7,000 a year for that actual search engine, but I want to put some funds towards promoting that so it gets even more. So those were kind of the highlights that of some tweaks, and I'll definitely be pushing around that language and getting feedback. I've already gotten some feedback from Sue. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm doing that.
All right, 7B?
So we have been approached by Rumpke to apply for a market development grant on their behalf. That's how Ohio EPA's market development grants work for private companies. They have to have a pass-through agency, so we would act as pass-through. And Mary, I don't know if you want to come up and give a brief overview of what it would be.
This is a very fast version of what their project is. So the 2-sentence version is that they're just applying for a market development grant to do some equipment modifications at their St. Bernard recycling facility so that they can better target PET plastic bottles and make sure that they're getting those baled in kind of more of a pure PET bale versus a more general 1 through 5 plastic bale that's not as marketable and the market is a little more volatile. So it's really just to make some modifications to equipment.
And they do have a letter of support from the city of St. Bernard. So we would need a vote that wants the to.
I'll move
Can I
that.
ask one quick
yeah.
question? With this, is the goal, does it increase both the quantity and I'll say the quality of the final product?
The part that they're applying for through the market development grant is more the quality. They're also going to be in the future applying for a recycling partnership grant that has an outreach component that will also look at the quantity.
Okay.
So the overall project, though, are specific parts, quality.
And what's the amount?
They're going for the full 200,000, that they will then match the 200,000, but the full project is like 1.5 million, which is why they're going for multiple grants.
Further discussion? Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, to approve this, a grant.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Tax grant.
Okay, so if you remember, we, had a motion from Karen Hurley earlier in the year to create the impact grant, for $500,000. We received almost $3 million in applications. They were for up to $100,000 requests, and we do have an overview of those, share, I don't know if you wanna give a brief overview of that and our process?
Sure. So we had 5 people reviewing the grants. We received 26 grants. And we all evaluated them. They came up with grades, basically, and then discussed and decided on which grants to propose that you fund. And since they're over $15,000, we do need the policy committee to approve them. The City of Wyoming wants to purchase truck leaf boxes. Their current ones are rusting out. And make improvements to their leaf composting sites because they received a notice of violation from the health department. Seals Redwood would be working with Building Value. They want grant funds to purchase a van to transport workers, and a truck to transport deconstructed material from a deconstruction site. And they also want to purchase a facility to process the salvaged wood from the deconstruction site. Food for the Soul wants funds to purchase a truck and a refrigerated van to redistribute rescued food to underserved communities. Last Mile Food Rescue wants funds to purchase a refrigerated truck also, and to hire a food donor solicitor manager. So that's someone who will try to reach out to places that are currently wasting food and try to get them to donate it instead. Queen City Commons wants grant funds to purchase a truck and a dump system. Right now, they're doing everything by hand, so it'll be able to collect and haul more food scraps easier. And then Tecum Farm is requesting funds for a skid steer and drive anger and a backhoe to turn compost, and they also want to do some training for their composting intern, and they will be providing a Nourishing Families director to teach culinary arts and how to use surplus food, cook on a budget, and store food properly.
So how much money did we allocate for that?
$500,000.
And the amount of requests was 2.8, 2.7 something? Which is the good news, right? That so many people are interested in this.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I was hoping for 5 proposals.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I don't know.
Well,
If you
we
look
found a
through the
niche,
rest of these
yeah.
that, were not recommended because we ran out of money, there's some really great projects.
There is, yeah, it was,
Over.
yeah,
What's that?
yes.
It makes me wonder if maybe we wanna allocate more money for this.
Was that?
Why don't we increase our
That was
fee?
my question. Do you
We have a
ready?
reserve, we can just use the reserve.
Well,
Okay, yeah, okay, I'm with you on that.
that was the question I bring to the table, was there good projects bumped because we didn't have the money, because we do have a reserve?
Yeah.
And could we bump it, I mean,
Because
based
some are,
on the grant review,
yeah.
not based on my review, but based on the grant review, should there be projects funded if we bump the level up?
If we
to
gave you
funding?
another $500,000.
Or is this a conversation that we have going into the next funding round to say, you know, we did it, is this our first time? This is our first time doing
This
this.
is the first time.
Right.
Something this big, yeah.
Which is, so we didn't really know, you know, what to anticipate.
Right.
So maybe moving into an additional round, maybe next year, saying, hey, you know, that 500 grand didn't quite match the need, or rather the ask, so maybe we increase that and take a look at our budget. I know we've got a reserve, but,
Good.
so I don't wanna put you on the spot, but you know, you look at these, it's like, oh, some good projects, which will still be projects next year, right?
Right.
So, anyway, I just wanna, what would be your response to, increasing the amount of this grant in the future?
I'm sorry, did we spend all 500,000?
Yeah, actually, by the time we got to one of the grants that had requested 100,000, we didn't have 100,000 left, so we gave them what we had left, so.
Here, could I ask a question? So a lot of these are, especially like a lot of refrigerated trucks or cargo vans. Are there any opportunities where some of these are located close to each other, kind of combine their efforts? Like especially like a chipper. You only use a chipper a couple times a year.
I don't think we got any requests for chippers.
Fresh Chipping and Compass Program.
Oh,
New chipper.
yeah.
So all I'm saying is, because I know refrigerated trucks are expensive,
Everybody's gonna have to.
are there ways for them to pool some of their resources?
So, what I'm learning is that, organizations want multiple refrigerated trucks. So I'm not sure that they're sitting unused, is what
And
I'm
then does the
gathering.
county, Denise, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and my apologies. Does the county have
rule you out.
master services agreements with vehicle providers? I know in some communities where I've worked, you know, they have a master services contract, so you can get fleet. And
So,
it's
I think we've
discounted
got, no offense to you, we've got a little off the reservation, right now.
That's okay.
So I think, because we have an item in front of us, what I'm wondering is that, as we move through this, evidently, great idea, lots of, you know, lots of folks that would like to partner. Maybe, after this round is completed, we look to the amount that we're funding this, and maybe increase it, given the request. I mean, I'm not saying that right, but I think that might make sense for a future conversation. I will retract, let's do it now. Let's have it in the future, let's get through this round, see how it goes, and then, maybe for the next round next year, we think about the funding amount. So those are my.
Everyone that I had to call and tell them they didn't get it asked me.
Yeah, we're gonna do one next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gives you time to evaluate these
That's right.
current projects
That's
that you're funding, so, because they're all asking for the same thing.
Yeah.
I work with all
Yeah.
these people, there's not that much stuff they have to haul, so I'm just being honest.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. Our vans, right?
I'm not saying every organization, but this.
But point taken,
Just
let's
watch this.
evaluate, and then next year have a conversation about the funding amount that we allocate.
Yeah, and I will say that I think a lot of the ones that did come up on top is, because we had that, the evaluation criteria that it serves disadvantaged, vulnerable communities. So, you know, that's really, if they didn't do that, they didn't get any points for that. So, you know, a lot of the projects seem very similar. I think that is, contributes to it.
Any, questions?
Yeah, just real quick on eligibility, I'm concerned about replacing equipment. Is that allowed in the grant? And if so, I would think that might be under review in the future rounds, because that could be, something that could be disallowed, replacing the existing equipment that might be, aged equipment, because, I would think that you would encourage, communities to, renew their commitment to the program by replacing equipment.
So they shouldn't be allowed to ask for grant funding
If say
for grant-funded equipment or their own
grant
equipment?
funded, yeah, I'm not saying it right, but say they have a truck and it's aged and they need to replace the truck, they should have the commitment to replace their own truck. But if they see a need to have a truck, I could see this grant, funding a new truck or a used truck. But replacing a truck, I see that, as a commitment to the program that they should be saving up to replace an existing equipment, an existing baler, an existing truck, an existing forklift or something like that.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept or approve the funding for the recommended grant applications.
I'll second that.
Is there any further conversation?
I just had one question. So what was the total in matches that we got with it?
They're on here.
Do you know the total?
No, I don't, I didn't
Okay.
add that up.
Okay, I can do that later. I thought you might just have it off the top of your head. It's like, yeah, we're giving away $500,000 and they're matching us up to $200,000.
It was a required 25% match, but it could be in kind if
Okay.
it was for a nonprofit.
25, okay, gotcha.
Okay, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks. We'll look forward to an update on that. Oh, yeah, okay. My pleasure. All right. Public member. We have a subcommittee worked on this. Bob's term has expired, and so our process dictates that we form a subcommittee of 4, it is 2, to evaluate the applications for the position. So I'll let the 2 members of that subcommittee present.
So Matt and I met, we interviewed 5 candidates. We interviewed, Bob Gettert, Colleen McSwiggan, Eileen Budo, Bruce Burno, and Glenn Welling. We're really happy with the candidates that we had here. They, had some extensive knowledge, experience, and actions. We decided that, Bob, we really appreciate your service. You've given us 4 years, but maybe a new voice is good. And
I'm
so.
okay with that.
You were gonna retire, so.
Right, but we really, your contribution has been exceptional in my experience with other members, and it's gonna be hard for other people to live up to that. If we were hiring you, you would've, when I kinda did the rubric, the city makes us do a rubric, and so I did that on the knowledge, experience, and actions of all the candidates, and Bob, you scored, on the top when it came to knowledge, experience, and actions. But because we were looking for some new blood and some new energy, Matt and I decided we would like to nominate Colleen McSwiggan. And Colleen, is one of the founding members of the Cincinnati Reuse and Recycling Hub. She served 10 years at Mount St. Joe as their sustainability coordinator. She has actively managed, recycling collection events herself. And she's involved with Lower Price Hill Business District, so she's got a lot of community connections. She's got the knowledge, experience, and proven actions. I've also seen her at these meetings contributing to this plan. She has contributed to the Green Cincinnati plans. So I think she will, be a great asset to this committee. So I would like to nominate, should we have further discussion?
Well, can I ask
Mac, make
Sure.
sure.
Sure, and I'll just echo, the applications were tremendous. And thanks to Sue, who set up the early interviews when I had whatever upper respiratory thing that attacked me for about 30 seconds before. They were fantastic, and the amount of knowledge that I've gained by being around Mr. Gettert is just, it can't be measured. And I don't know that, the first 2 or 3 months I've kind of sat here sucking it in, and you've probably heard more from me today than you ever wanted to, A, and B, that you have in all the other meetings combined. But I think that you put this policy committee on a great path with pushing some of these ideas. And I think for Colleen, so I appreciate everything that you've done, and I think that the county owes you a great debt of gratitude. I think that Colleen McSwiggan offers a lot of interesting things to now put these things in action, to put these ideas in action. She's worked with, she's kind of, I'm gonna say a one-man band, but there's 3 or 4 people on the board and they have some employees, but, working with grants, corporate donors, individuals. If you look at the website and the reuse partners that she brings in, I was particularly hit, if you go to the website, by the quote with her mission statement. Our mission is to revolutionize how people think about things and provide a place where almost everything can be recycled or reused. She's worked with volunteer groups, including UC, NKU, Girl Scouts, Seven Hills, Archdiocese of Cincinnati, McNick, Mercy McCauley. I think that, and I alluded to it before, policy is one thing. I believe it's grassroots driven, and that's somebody that has her finger on the grassroots of what's going on, who's linked in with some of these very, very active groups, it is, I made the comment to Sue when we discussed this. It's somebody I follow through a brick wall, and I think that her leadership skills are going to kind of move this to changing people's hearts. Ultimately, that's kind of, you can have, again, policy is important, but it's not impactful or effective until we change people's hearts. And I think I'm probably a good example of somebody who 2 years ago didn't really recycle. Now I'm taking stuff out of, yeah, I know. Yeah. Now I'm taking stuff out of the neighbor's can.
That's scavenging.
Okay. So, I mean, it can happen, because I sit here and I listen to the meetings, and I do the research, and I see the need for it, and Colleen is somebody that can activate that interest in people to a degree that pushes us on, and again, that's no negative comment about the other candidates who had specific skills that were immeasurable. Bob's writing a book on it. Literally writing a book on it. That tells me that you know your stuff. But again, I think this would be an interesting time for us to activate a lot of these things. And one of the complaints that people often have about policy committees is that they're committees, and they talk, and they don't get things done. And now I think we've got a nice roadmap to kind of move this along, and I think that Colleen is an important part of that.
Thank you. Any other comments related? So I too want to comment, Bob. Thank you for your expertise, for your diligence, for your determination to move things forward here. I too appreciate everything that you've brought forward, some of which, in fact, we should probably have a report out on some of the things that have been added by way of some language on some of the other things that we've just talked about. I would like to get a collection of all the changes, because I think that will illuminate some of the impacts that you've had related to the plan. And so I too appreciate your service here and your perspective. So thank you for that. So any other comments related to, we don't have a motion yet, or I'll entertain a motion.
Just a reminder, it's only the 4th statute.
So I don't know if you want a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion,
And I'll second.
to nominate, Colleen for the public member.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. We'll look forward to seeing Colleen. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, number 8, informational items, waste reduction innovation grant update.
And that's just attachment F, just to update you on the innovation grants, really we received at the end of the year that, were funded, from Gorman Heritage Farm, Jump King, and My Y, and you can read about them at your leisure.
Okay? All right, the next item is our next meeting, March 15th, 2023, 3, here in this building. Is there anything else for the good of the cause?
Yeah, just a goodbye, and with my departure, you might end on time.
You're correct.
But I recognize Colleen's a good replacement, and she'll fill my shoes quite well. But I will commit to, in the implementation stages, I always like the planning, I always like the development of the plan, but my role in my career has been in the implementation stages. That's what I always enjoy. So in the implementation stages, I will commit to supporting Michelle, particularly in the contract development with the townships and the municipalities, how we can work with them, nothing forceful, but just trying to help and assisting them and trying to develop better contracts and seeing how we can implement some of the elements of this plan and more waste reduction, more recycling programs. So my assistance is offered.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, the committee, thank you. All right, anything else from anyone? To entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
There we go. Oh, my goodness. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.